Hello, FanWings, non-FanWings, and non-FanWings, hopefully soon to be FanWings. Today I'll be explaining why I don't like the finale of Wings of Fire Book 10, Darkness of Dragons. I love the Wings of Fire series for a lot of reasons. The story, characters, world, and most importantly, the themes are just some of those reasons. And while I could go on ranting for hours about how amazing the series is, that's not what this video is about. This video is about how I don't like Darkness of Dragons, the 10th book in the series and the finale to the second story arc. Specifically, I want to talk about its finale, why I don't like it, and some potential ways to fix it, along with comparing it to another similar finale that I think was done better. Also, because we're nearly at 200, don't forget to subscribe. Now, on with the video. First, though, I want to talk about what the book does well, because don't get me wrong, I still love this book overall. At the time I read it, it was probably my favorite book in the world, and I still think it's really good and holds up to most criticism to this day. I love the character of Kibli, and I love how his backstory, along with more on the Scorpion Den and the Outlaws, are all explored. I like how we got to see Kibli use more of his intelligence with the twice as much please plot, and I really enjoyed exploring the ancient Night Kingdom and seeing Darkstalker's cunning and manipulation at play. Honestly, the only thing aside from what I'm about to explain that I dislike about this book is the abysmal love triangle. Honestly, though, why does every single protagonist need a love interest? The first problem that I want to bring up is that of Darkstalker's character. He acts really evil at times, but also thinks he's the good guy and is shocked by the results of the Soul Reader when they tell him that he's pretty much pure evil. My core issue with Darkstalker in this book is because it feels like Darkstalker in Legends Darkstalker and Darkstalker in Darkness of Dragons just aren't the same character. At least that's the way it seems to me. While Darkstalker could be ruthless and cruel at times in the title that bears his name, he was still very often in the right, and his motives were completely understandable, if not justifiable. Even when Darkstalker did things out of malice, like trying to kill Vigilance, it was because Vigilance had just tried to do the same by hiring an assassin to kill Darkstalker. So it makes a lot of sense that Darkstalker would want vengeance, even if most people wouldn't really go to that extreme. However, I think the elephant in the room needs to be tackled now, the death of Arctic. Some of you may remember that one time in Darkstalker Legends where Darkstalker publicly enchants his father to, against his own will, disembowel himself, as per his own description. What people don't remember, though, is what led up to it. Keep in mind that Darkstalker had recently just lost his mother, which he understandably sees as Arctic's fault, and Arctic had, just hours before, kidnapped and brainwashed Darkstalker's sister, Whiteout, who is one of the few dragons left in the world who Darkstalker actually cared about, and Arctic had taken her to the Ice Kingdom against her will. Arctic had also just been very cold to his son for his whole life, and had been a pretty terrible parent overall, never expressing any kind of affection or care for Darkstalker, and seeing Whiteout as more property than an independent dragon. I'm not trying to justify Darkstalker's response to this, because it was a pretty immoral thing to do, regardless of who it was being done to, but we do understand why he does it. It's understandable that Darkstalker hates Arctic for Arctic's actions, even though killing him was not the right thing to do, especially the way Darkstalker did it. Nevertheless, Darkstalker never does bad things just because, or because he's evil, because he's not. He's a gray character, but Darkness of Dragons just makes him into a villain with a bit of extra depth. Then the book tries to balance all of his bad actions by showing that he does truly want what's best for the continent and sees himself as the hero, but this doesn't really work because for the rest of the book, he's just been forcing people to do things against their will, which was one of the reasons why he hated Arctic in the first place. However, I believe that this radical shift in character, coupled with what was done earlier to Arctic, could be justified by the fact that he spent the better part of an entire year trapped under a mountain, with, from his point of view, everyone he loved either dying or betraying him, when he was only trying to do the right thing, of course, from his point of view. There's only one problem. The reader doesn't really get to sympathize with Darkstalker for this, because we don't see him from his perspective. However, this is quite an easy fix. Instead of having the post epilogue section of Legends Darkstalker describe how the Skyfire comet broke the bracelet and the dragon awoke bit, we could see the dragon awake and spend a few pages in his shoes. I feel like this is such a small change that could have added so much to Darkstalker's character and the plot of the book overall. And while it might complicate things, I think that's definitely worth it for what it would add for Darkstalker's character. Now I'd like to focus a bit more specifically on morality. The majority of evil things Darkstalker does, from killing his father to enchanting everyone to like him to making fierce teeth like Clearsight, all revolve around the idea of taking away someone's free thought and will, and trading it for whatever Darkstalker wants them to feel. In a way, it's kind of like the Pantalan hive mind, only permanent. Obviously, we don't need to be told that this is bad. It's horrible, even when it's done to evil dragons, such as Vulture, which is why I absolutely hate how Kinkajou does the same thing to Darkstalker. We say that Darkstalker is just the worst dragon ever for doing this, and yet Kinkajou is allowed to do it with no negative repercussions, and nobody even batting an eye to the fact that they're just fighting fire with fire, or in this case, cruelty with cruelty, brainwashing with brainwashing. Even foe slayers, Darkstalker's literal mother, is perfectly fine with all of his freedom being stolen away from him and becoming someone completely different, completely against his will. This is honestly the biggest and kind of the only problem I have with this finale. I absolutely love the moment where all the hearts and minds of the fighting Nightwings and Icewings are connected, and they kind of gain sympathy and understanding for one another. It's a really heartwarming moment with an even more powerful message, and I love how they don't just go with the typical trope infested fantasy final battle esque style, but they resolve it peacefully. Now, I'd like to compare how they treated Darkstalker in the Darkness of Dragons finale to how they treated the revived Garmadon in Green Destiny, which is the finale of Sons of Garmadon and Hunted, those being seasons 8 and 9 of Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu, respectively. Now, these characters are actually more similar than meets the eye. They are both antagonists who are not originally evil but now are in their revived esque states. These finales are also similar, with both characters being defeated by their once loved ones and their own ideas and weapons. However, I feel like the latter handles this much, much better. Rather than fighting Garmadon's power with his own, like they did in Darkness of Dragons, Lloyd learns from his previous mistakes and he doesn't fight Garmadon, but learns to resist him instead. And when Garmadon is finally defeated and Lloyd regains his stolen power, rather than killing the revived Garmadon, which he was perfectly capable of doing, and Garmadon had caused him so much pain at this point, he chooses the higher path, much like they did with the Icewing Nightwing battle. And he doesn't punish wrongs with more wrongs, he lets Garmadon live in spite of all of this. The same cannot be said for our protagonists in Darkness of Dragons. They punish wrongs with more wrongs, and they do it mercilessly. You know what I would have loved, though? To see Darkstalker defeated in a similar way to how Garmadon was, even with something as simple as a spell that, instead of breaking Darkstalker's whole character, annulled all of his previous enchantments, thus making him not immortal and killing him. We know that Animus magic can cancel out Animus magic, so there's no point in saying that Tui couldn't do this, because she could if she wanted to, but she didn't want to, or she didn't think that it would play out very well. However, I think there are some better ways to deal with this than killing him off. Drawing inspiration from other seasons of Ninjago, they could have had the spell make Darkstalker keep his personality but lose his powers. Honestly, they could even end it with Darkstalker simply realizing the flaws in his ways and repenting over what he had done. And I think even that would have been better than what we actually got. I've reached 1,500 words on this script, and I don't feel like ruining that number, so I think that's everything regarding the finale of Wings of Fire Book 10 Darkness of Dragons. Overall, I can safely say I was pretty much just disappointed by the way Darkstalker's character was treated, but what are your thoughts? What would you have changed from the original finale, or just not changed? Let me know in the comments below. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more Wings of Fire content. Remember that every dragon has a story, and I'll see you next time.